Hey everybody, this channel has a rule which is less videography and more thoughts. I'm sticking with that rule today. I am neck deep in thesis and internship stuff that's taken a lot of my time, but I had to make this video before I forget this insight that I've had, which I'm gonna have trouble articulating. And so caveat, this is a jargon-tastic video. I've made a couple of these where I kind of just no holds barred explain what I'm thinking. If I accidentally alienate you with like jargon-tastic language and there's something you're interested in knowing, throw it in a comment and say, please explain what you meant by this, and I will. The insight that I want to talk about is that there is a differing rate of something that I'm going to call delegated agency or delegated autonomy to machines. And hopefully by the end of this you'll understand what I mean, and I will understand it better, and everyone will win. So delegated autonomy is the process of handing over your decision-making ability to machines. And those machines can either be completely autonomous machines or they can be machines that other people are using. So the core example that I want to hold on to today is the example of which restaurant do you go to? Cool. All right. So I don't care that much. There's lots of restaurants around me, and so I just Yelp it and I go like, what's near me? And I just give it a vague mood, and then that's an act of delegated autonomy. I'm deciding not to decide. I'm deciding to let an algorithm help me decide. And that's sort of, it seems fine, and we do it a lot. And it's not just in restaurants, it's also like it's definitely in the media that we consume. Who do we watch on YouTube? Who do we watch on Facebook? What appears in our feed, which in a way that I think people refuse to grapple with, but is true, like that constructs a lot of our reality. And so our perceptual, that might be called delegated perception, or delegated epistemology or something, or we could study that. But the concept that I want to get at is that delegated autonomy is going to increase over time. It is increasing over time, right? Self-driving cars are an example of delegated autonomy. I don't want to drive, and so I don't want to make decisions about when to turn the wheel and when to change lanes and what streets to take. And so I delegate that to a machine, and the machine does the hard work for me. Cool. So there's a increase over time in the amount of decisions, autonomous decisions, that we are going to hand off to machines. And like I mentioned at the beginning, those machines can either be completely autonomous, like very deterministic, or they're machines that are controlled in part by other people's interests, a la Cambridge Analytica Facebook leak, right? You hand over the decision of who is it important for me to be digitally, socially engaging with online, and then that data is being used later to influence your perception of the world. So there's the feedback loop, this backwards causality that I think people get, but maybe aren't as worried about as I'm worried about, which is that when you allow a machine, when you delegate your autonomy to a machine, and then that machine does something, it's not a causally like vacuous that affects you. It changes you. It changes your future, because it changes the decisions that you make and places that you go and the people that you meet. It changes your perception, like I've talked about with like how you construe reality, and it changes you because it changes slowly, iteratively, a little tiny bit. Like if you're thinking of integrals, it's like a DP, like a little tiny bit of your personality gets changed by the algorithm. You chose to allow part of yourself to become part of the machine, and it changed you just a tiny bit. So there's a rate of change that like your personality is changing just a tiny bit every time you delegate some of your autonomy. And the number of things that you are delegating to machines is going up over time. So this rate that this rate of change of your personality as a result of external causal influences like algorithms is going up, but the more delegated autonomy you have, the faster this rate goes. So this thing's not flat. The rate of change of your personality over time as a result of algorithms is not a flat function. It's an exponential function, because the more delegated autonomy you have, the more these little bits of changes of your personality aggregate over time. Great, so we get that, okay? We're delegating more of our agency to machines, and we knowingly know that those delegations are changing us a little, but we're okay with the way that those little changes happen. Everyone's like, I know Facebook influences me a little, but I'm just going to let it happen. I know Yelp influences me a little, I'm going to let it happen. I'm okay with it. We consent to the little tiny changes in our personality because we know that they're little, they're not radically affecting who we are. But what I think people fail to recognize is that that rate of change of the tiny bits of personality is not linear. It's going to go up faster as we delegate more and more of our decisions to machines. Cool. So I could end the video right there, and I think that that's enough of a point worth making to put this online, but the problem is there's a perceptual gap, and this is what I want to explain. There's a perceptual gap between how much those things influence us and how much we perceive that they're influencing us. And it might be challenging for me to explain this, but I think it's best explained in terms of what philosophers call counterfactuals, like the way that it could have been. So the counterfactual to delegating agency is never perceived. You never know what you would have done had you not been influenced by the machine. And if the machine is doing its job well, if the algorithm is working well, when it does its job well, you perceive that it was entirely you that made the decision. That's the perceptual gap that I'm trying to get at. You think that you made the decision perfectly because it suggested the thing that was close enough to your interests that you thought, that's the decision that I would have made even without the algorithm. But counterfactually, you don't actually know that that's true. That's not a calculation you can really make. And so this perception that the machine is doing what we would have done had the machine not been there doesn't map to reality. There's no guarantee that it maps to reality. And so here's my proposal, and here's why I'm making this video, and then I'm going to get it back to the thesis, even if the audio is garbage. Sorry. Is the perception... There's going to be a crossing over point where that causal influence on us is so high that we're not okay with it anymore, right? If you can't imagine that completely, there's an episode of Black Mirror where people wear... their eyes are like computer augmented. They essentially live in augmented reality. And this episode of Black Mirror, people get manipulated because their augmented reality gets manipulated. That's the perfect metaphor for what I'm trying to get at. No one would be okay with everyone being forced to wear Google Glasses all the time that like changed people's faces. There's going to be this theoretical point where we're no longer okay with how much those things are manipulating us. The insight that I had that I'm trying to articulate in this video is that because every step along the way, that's why I like thinking in integrals, because every little tiny DP, every tiny change to our personality along the way, it's not perceived as something that we wouldn't have done. We will not perceive this point where the influence on our personality is so much that we won't accept it, because every little step along the way, we are making decisions that we think we made ourselves. So, I think that's it. I'm going to leave it at that. I actually really do have to go write. So sorry about the audio and everything, but that is the concept that I want to articulate. Delegated autonomy is the decisions that people make to allow machines and other people sometimes to make decisions on our behalf. And we're okay with the fact that those decisions are going to influence who we are on some micro level. That's what the decision of delegation is. I'm giving you part of my autonomy. But the problem is, because the rate of adoption of delegated autonomy is going to go up as time passes, and because the ability to perceive whether or not we made the decision or the machine made the decision is hard, we're not going to be able to perceive the point at which we want to say no. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, leave a question below. And I'm interested enough in this topic that I'll probably make another video that's a little more detailed and a little less rambly. But I wanted to capture the thoughts here for you now, as opposed to never making this video because I'm working on my thesis. Cool. Talk to you soon. Have a great day. Like, share, subscribe, send to your nerd friends. Check out. We've got a weird list of videos. They've got like videos about technology, videos about epistemology and science, and then like videos about race relations in the United States. It's kind of a grab bag right now, but check it out. And thanks for watching, and I will talk to you in the next one.